Welcome to the Monday morning edition of Last Night, where as you know we have a lot more to talk about since we have the whole weekend to cover. Grimm, Once Upon a Time, and The Walking Dead, all unleashed monsters on the world, whether those monsters were human or not. Joining me to talk about this weekend's Monster Fest is Dr. Vance Hillsinger, monster hunter extraordinaire. Thank you for lending us your expertise, Doctor.
It's my pleasure, Miss Enghill.
Let's talk about some of the actual monsters we saw this weekend. The Walking Dead, as everyone knows, is a show about survivors of a zombie apocalypse, and it's in its third season now. After 3 years, actually watching them fight zombies just isn't as suspenseful, you might say. Do you ever get bored fighting the same monsters over and over?
I can sympathize with people who think fighting zombies, the slow shuffling type at least, can feel pretty routine after a while. Boredom kills in an apocalypse. You cannot let your guard down.
Shows like Grimm give us a much wider variety of monsters, taken of course from the fairy tales of the Brothers Grimm and other sources.
I still haven't decided how I feel about those monsters. The real problem with having a hidden world of monsters is the amount of disbelief you need to suspend about how they've remained hidden all these centuries. That said, they're still clever creatures.
Let's talk about the characters for a bit. The main character, Nick Burkhardt, is a policeman, and a descendant of the original Brothers Grimm, and his police captain Sean Reynard is half Vesson, as they say. Nick just found out Juliet, the woman he loves whose memories of him were erased, is now under a spell that makes her irresistibly attracted to Sean, and vice versa. As far as I can tell, it was pretty gratuitous.
No. The 3 Brides of Dracula were gratuitous. This was simply bad writing.
Now, David Greenwald is a good writer. He wrote several episodes of Enghill and Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Interesting you should mention that. Another Buffy Angel alum, Jana Spenson, wrote last night's episode of Once Upon a Time. Had quite a Whedon-esque ending too.
I love that they finally brought up the original Rumpelstiltskin tale, even if they did need to modify it. And tying him to Kara the way they did makes both of their characters that much more tragic. Rose McGowan did an excellent job as a young Kara.
I agree. But does it seem to you that every villain in the show is somehow whitewashed over time? Everyone starts off as the one you love to hate, but once they're established the writers reveal their true backstory, and then they're just the one you love. They did it with Regina, Mr. Gold, and now Cora. Soon, there will be no villains left, only people we don't understand completely.
That may be the show's true strength. After all, in real life there are hardly that many true villains. And nothing is as black and white as it is in fairy tales. Perhaps that is what Once Upon a Time is ultimately trying to show.
You may have a point there. It's almost the same lesson The Walking Dead tried to teach last night.
Oh, The Walking Dead. You know, back in the first season, when Rick told Merle there was no more black and white, he may have been foreshadowing his own path into moral ambiguity. In his own way, he's become as ruthless as the governor.
Last night, while Rick and the governor spoke in the barn, Daryl and Martinez had their male bonding moment, as did Milton and Herschel. And you could tell Rick was starting to sympathize with the governor when he started talking about losing his family. It must have been like looking in a mirror half the time for him, seeing someone else shoulder the same burdens and pains, and knowing it could easily be the kind of man he'd become someday if he's not careful.
What would you say was the best line of the night, in each show?
In Grimm, I'd say when Monroe is trying to cheer up Nick at the beginning. Oh, that quadruple homicide. And the opening quote that is tradition on the show, the will to conquer is the first condition of victory. In Once Upon a Time, Rose McGowan says a bride must be Snow White and Rumple merely replies, when you see the future there is irony everywhere. And of course, Mr. Gold's phone call to Belle was simply, the feels, as they say. On The Walking Dead, definitely when Milton asks to see Herschel's leg and Herschel replies, at least buy me a drink first. That would be followed closely by Rick saying, we're going to war.
What about the best love scene? As it turns out, every show had one this weekend.
It's a tough call, but Maggie and Glenn, just because it was preceded by those peeping zombies.
It was nice to see them reconcile, so to speak. Finally, which show had the best cliffhanger?
I'd have to say Once Upon a Time. We're seeing a new side to Snow White now, and the way they built up to it was nearly masterful. Grimm's premise is the monsters are real, but once brought the characters themselves to life, and they're all much more three-dimensional than they ever were in the stories. Light on monsters, but heavy on characters.
Thank you for your insights, Doctor. We'll have you back again, I'm sure.
Anytime, Miss Enghill.
And thank you all for watching last night.